Alexander Calder was the ultimate creative explorer. He is known for his exploration of movement as a dynamic force in art. He refined the parameters of sculpture using moving mobiles with free-flowing pieces connected to wire. His exploration of movement in sculpture stretched and expanded what is considered sculpture, freeing the static and grounded values sculpture has been rooted in and giving life to the previously inanimate art form. Calder also created a new type of sculpture called a stable. Stables are massive steel sculptures, abstract and architectural in nature. Although grounded in the earth, these sculptures were the first of its kind, pushing the boundaries of shape and creating fluid movement in otherwise hard and unyielding materials. Calder's mobiles and stables changed the way humans encounter sculpture by creating mobile composition to be changed with the wind. He also created a new experience for the viewers, allowing them to view sculptures from a dynamic, living perspective. By creating massive, larger-than-life abstract sculptures, Calder changed the way people saw and encountered sculpture, creating and experiencing where one could quite literally walk through the middle of a sculpture and encounter it from different vantage points. Calder's entire existence was imbued with creation. He was an artistic innovator that exchanged dual and lifeless metal and fashioned it into living and breathing art. He exchanged the static and mobile foundation of sculpture and freed it from its tomb. Calder exchanged death for life and made the frozen and fixed become fluid and movable. We, the viewer, are invited to join him and see the vibrant, ever-moving world where he resides. Born into a long line of sculptors, Alexander is the fourth generation of Calder to take up the art form. Alexander Calder begins creating and exploring movement in art at the age of 8, making toys, jewelry, board games with moving board pieces in an art studio in the basement. Calder first studied mechanical engineering and applied kinetics at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey, and receives a degree in engineering in 1919. After graduating from college, Calder tries many jobs: automotive engineer, draftsman, a map colorist, steamboat stoker, and hydraulics engineer. Through the 1920s, Calder began setting himself up in the European art world through painting and illustrating, while at the same time exploring different ways to create with wire. In 1926, he creates a set of wire circus figurines that move in a function in a lifelike manner. He then creates a live performance he calls the circus, where he demonstrates his art in real time. He performs the circus in many places throughout Europe and in New York City. In the circus, we see the seed of both his notable innovations, his use of wire and metal in art, the use of dynamic movement. After creating the circus, Calder then branches out into using wire to produce linear portraits and figurine sculptures. At this point, he is using art in a representational manner rather than in a modern or abstract form. In 1929, Calder begins producing jewelry with the same wire he uses in sculpture. He continues jewelry work throughout his career, primarily making necklaces, rings, brooches, and bracelets. Calder produces approximately 1,800 pieces of jewelry over his lifetime. Calder's most famous jewelry piece is the hammered brass necklace titled Jealous Husband, worn by Angelica Houston in 1976, shown on the cover of the New York Times magazine. His jewelry tours in exhibits and galleries over the years, sometimes along with his smaller stables and mobiles, and sometimes as a part of a larger jewelry collection. Calder did not feel jewelry was less important of an art form. He was the type of artist who had multiple projects of various scales and forms in his studio at a time. The year 1930 is a turning point for Calder. He visits friend and fellow artist Piet Mondrian's studio. His whole studio is painted white with black lines and blocks of color, and as he looks at it, Calder wonders what it would look like if it had movement in it. Calder suggests to Mondrian that his abstract pieces might come to life if they oscillate, but Mondrian disagrees. Calder recalls this meeting by saying the following, begin quote, "This one visit gave me the shock that started things. Though I had heard the word modern before, I did not consciously know or feel the term abstract. So now at 32, I wanted to paint and work in the abstract. Calder then joins the Influence Abstract Creation group and focuses on finding a way to make abstract color move through space. He calls them mobiles. Calder begins experimenting in earnest, creating ways for the abstract metal discs to move through the air. He constructs some of his mobiles with small electric motors, but abandons the idea in favor of open-air movement with available wind. Calder creates his mobiles by using private legs of wire counterbalanced with thin metal fins. He uses natural movement by assembling elements that balance themselves naturally by weight, surface area, and length of wire. This creates constant compositional harmony along the patterns and parts. This appearance is randomly arranged and rearranged in space by chance, with air moving the individual pieces. Through the rest of his career, Calder experiments with scale in his mobiles, and at one point he creates his mobiles so that they can be shipped in a flat 18 by 20 envelope. He includes instructions for assembling, and then they are shown in galleries across Europe. On the other end of the spectrum, Calder constructs massive mobiles over 100 feet long that hang in the airport terminals and large-scale museums to this day. As he becomes more well-known and his work is recognized internationally, his commissioned for mobiles are from countries, international organizations, and large corporations. In the spring of 1937, Calder's first large-scale bolted stable is presented to the world. It is entitled Devilfish and Big Bird, and it is displayed at the Matisse Gallery in New York. Calder's stables are embraced by the public, and his opportunities to create larger and larger bolted steel stables continue as the decades pass. He creates enormous walk-through stables in various locations, such as Lincoln Center Plaza in New York City, the United Nations, the Summer Olympics in Mexico, the International Expo in Canada, the Hart Senate Building in Washington, D.C., the Spoleto Festival in Italy, the Museum of History and Technology Square at the Smithsonian, and the Federal Plaza in Chicago. Calder's exploration of scale composition through massive steel structure, abstract shape, and linear design creates a new and monumental type of sculpture. While stables lack the dynamic movement captured in his mobiles, they are flowing and elegant, juxtaposing in heavy, bolted steel with the lightness and simplicity of abstract design. The scale of Calder's stables are unprecedented. Viewers are able to encounter sculpture through experiencing it as a tactile, tangible, larger-than-life experience. Both Calder's mobiles and his stables are revolutionary for the time period. They change the way people encounter sculpture on a fundamental level. Although, in this day and age, we are used to seeing movement in sculptures, this was unheard of in his day. Until Calder, sculpture had been an expression of solidity, of motionlessness. Calder turned that notion on its head, creating a new form of sculpture unlike any type of art ever created at that time. Alexander Calder was the quintessential creator. Inherent in his art lies a play of form and movement itself. We feel the gaiety and lightness that surrounds masters of their craft. For Calder, we get a sense that he has never truly left the basement art workshop of his youth. Calder imbued life into everything he touched, exploring dynamic movement in art, daring us to encounter art differently, and exchanging the static lifelessness of solid forms into movable, fluid, and transformative masterpieces.